Hey guys, it's Matt. This is the Olympic recap presentation. The closing ceremonies, if you could call them that, were Sunday night. I don't know what it was. I think in eighth grade middle school in Kansas somewhere could probably put together a better presentation than what the Japanese did. But the point or the theme that will run through this Olympic recap presentation is, as usual, the Notnilc reality system that stands behind the screen and presents reality on your television through its minions is out as usual to destroy everything, to destroy everything that anybody considered to be once good. In this case, to stomp out and stamp out the last bastions of what's considered pure sport competition. Now, I know most of the people watching here have turned off sports a long time ago, and you have good reason to, good excuse to. For example, Steph Curry, who's just a great shooter for the Golden State Warriors, NBA basketball player, he got a contract extension this week or last week. You might have heard about it. 4-year extension. And if you're not familiar with it, people are like, yeah, the salaries are kind of out of control. 4-year extension? I don't know. Let's see, like get 40 million. 215 million for a contract extension. He's getting almost $250 million to dribble around a basketball, and it's an extension. It's not even his real contract. So $250 million. Well, that makes sense. I'm sure it makes perfect sense to the guy down the cul-de-sac that the NBA can support that with no fans. Yeah, people like my buddy Ken will just yell sneaker contracts. What? They just yell out sneaker contracts, and somehow that explains everything. How there's no possible way the economics of what these bums are being paid adds up. So the point is, to me, the Olympics is a slower process, and their creepy back room, Dr. Evil at the head of the table, his twin mirror image Bezos at the other, literally the Mike Myers Dr. Evil looking across a long table to his twin Jeff Bezos. They're plotting and planning with all the other Notnilc Bilderberg characters how they can destroy all sports because see this is just something still something that real people hold dear, the competition of sports and in its pure form, guys, and many of you are so turned off by all of sport. In its pure form, it is not as bad as many of you believe it to be. For anybody new, a quick recap: the Notnilc reality system working through its minions is basically out to destroy everything that was once good, or a real human being believed was once good, or took joy in, or looked forward to. So, in this case, we will talk about the Olympics and the slow destruction of the last bastion of pure sport. And they've completely destroyed other sports already, like NBA basketball. I mean, it's just a bunch of bums, a bunch of bums dribbling a basketball around that don't play defense, making even bums on the end of the bench are making $10 million. Bums that basically don't get in are making $10 million a year. They've already destroyed a lot of sports. They've already completely ruined a lot of sports with replay and things like that. So the Olympics, it will take more time for the Notnilc reality system to completely destroy it. They're doing a heck of a good job, and I would think they would say they're ahead of schedule. But in terms of, we'll look at the Olympics in a moment, but of course it destroys everything. It's almost like a game that it plays, almost like it's contractual arrangement that it negotiated for itself before coming into this reality system. So let me get this straight. So we put it out, and we put out like the highest examples of what a human being in that reality system can achieve for each different type of art or each different type of media presentation. Okay, like we put out the Beatles, and then we're supposed to, our role in this reality system, I'm speaking on behalf of the Not Milk minions getting their instructions at the creepy table. Our role is to slowly destroy it, but get people to believe that it's just the normal evolution and the best a modern society can do. And if what do we get? we get a point. If we can achieve that, we get a point and a box of crimpets. And Jared serving, if we can achieve that, okay. So we're going to get these four guys, the Beatles, and we're going to get a lot of handlers and helpers and music geniuses and the creepy piano player and Under the Silver Lake to help them compose their music. And John Lennon freely admits he doesn't even know how to read or write music. We're going to put out, though, some incredible stuff. Eleanor Rigby sits by the beach and it's good stuff. But then just slowly destroy it where people just think then they turn on one day looking for Little Pimp Gucci Gang. They're looking for it. They're actually searching it out. But MTV is just 16 and pregnant. There's like rows and endless rows. You can go in your guide to Tuesday, Wednesday. It's just endless 16 and pregnant. Wasn't that a video channel? Why would they go? It's all about the confusion, the destruction of all things, which will lead me to this Rilo Keeley song in just a moment, if I can ever get to it. This song I haven't thought about for years. I'm going to just read some of the lyrics. So somebody's looking for Little Pimp, and then it's 16 and pregnant. But if they find it, it's yeah, yeah. What does he say? I can't even do it, but it's just little. It's Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang. I mean, this and people think this is normal. It's not. It is the intentional destruction. That's just music. Movies, of course. Star Wars. I mean, I'm not gonna. Here we go again. No, I'm just gonna say, of course, the last three made bad on purpose. There's some new people here. Made bad on purpose. They don't need profits. They don't need to make profits. That has nothing to do with profits. It's always about the agenda first. And create the greatest trilogy of movies ever. And then what do we get if we destroy it? We get a point. If we destroy it, we get to suck some sort of loosh. If we that's a big incentive. So then work to destroy it. Art. You have, I mean, sometimes their time frame could potentially be hundreds of years. You have the Renaissance masters or sculptures or whatever they say Michelangelo presented on a ceiling or a sculpture. But then you turn that into what would be in like the museum, the New York Museum of Modern Art or the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. You go in there, there's probably like a severed cow head in some sort of gelatinous suspension in a cube or something. And you've seen this modern art, the cow broken into different parts. There's probably like a jar of piss presented as art. And but this is Matt. Don't you realize this is just the normal evolution of where a modern society goes? It's all normal. It's okay. No, it's the intentional takedown of all aspects of art, human expression. Can throw a dart in every area: TV shows, music, movies, art. You know, Poetry is rap. Poetry is gangster rap. What more do I need to? The highest evolution of poetry is gangster rap. And Snoop Dogg coming out, in the early '90s, he's talking about his bitches, and he's talking about his gat, and he's going to kill. And it's a lot worse than I'm saying, guys. He's talking about I can't there's stuff I can't even say, with other men. I mean, he's talking about pants on the ground. I mean, just and now he's beloved. The Snoop Dogg. This is all part of the reality takedown of everything, in my opinion, without anybody that coordinates. Well, maybe if you're making Corona beer commercials with Snoop Dogg, he's the latest. Maybe they are in on it, but most people aren't in on it. They serve the Notnilc and the realities, general themes and wishes without being in on it. It's incredible how this does this. If you tune yourself down to a certain frequency, I'm not suggesting you do this. If you turn yourself down to a certain frequency, you'll serve it too. But don't, obviously we're off the frequency. But Snoop Dogg and his all the horrific stuff that came out of his mouth, and he was on trial, I think, for murder. Murder was the case that they gave me. He got off, but he'd hang out with Suge Knight, and he's now beloved. Oh, we love Snoop Dogg, and oh, if you could get Snoop Dogg to come and babysit your kids while you go out tonight, would you do it? Oh, every American household with the parents age 40 and over would just love to have the friendly Snoop Dogg come over and watch the kids and invade your hot tub with his blunts and his home. But he's beloved. The point is, they do this. This theme carries forth over and over again as well. But at the worst is Snoop Dogg. Okay, guys, I cut up part of that out because we know it works to destroy all facets of human expression, and was just going on and have to stick to the main topic here is sport, and specifically what it has done, most notably in this Tokyo Olympics, in destroying it. But for anybody, um, we need to talk more about this in the future, and I don't have the greatest answer, but the question that needs to be addressed, of course, is, well, especially for anybody new, anybody that's old guard, we get a general sense on how it operates and what it's out to do to a human being. But for anybody new, you'd say, well, why? Why does it work to do, even if whether I believe you or not at this point, or maybe I need more convincing, but why does it work on purpose to destroy all aspects of art? And the key there is to destroy all aspects of human expression. That is the key to ultimately, in my opinion, what it's out to destroy. It's twofold, and I don't have all the answers here, guys. We need to talk about it, and I'll look to your comments. But on one side, it's about creating kind of a sense of hopelessness that people just don't understand what's going on, but the things that they could count on, it's about the Notnilc reality, telling people almost subconsciously that the few, whispering like Voldemort, and only you can hear him. The few things in life left that you counted on for enjoyment, pleasure, fulfillment. And again, is fulfillment through the next release of a good Star Wars movie? Is that really understanding, you know, yourself as a human being? In some sense, you would say you'd want to release a good Star Wars movie because some people would argue that keeps a human being from understanding themselves. But no, they know what they're doing in terms of turning a real boy Pinocchio back into wood. They know what they're doing. These creeps know what they're doing. Is there any question about it? It's evil genius and in the extreme. So it creates a sense of hopelessness, in a sense, that, I mean, just even now I know what it's doing, of course, to a degree. We have a sense and we can sniff it out. But, I was looking forward to the Olympics. I was looking forward to pockets of the last bastion of pure sport. I know a ton of people in this community cut up all sports, and I think it's just inappropriate. It's something that's always been part of the human experience. Take two people coming out in the Olympics that aren't paid, aren't endorsed by Nike. The judo competition, men and women, I watched some of that. The middleweight judo, somebody comes from Iran and somebody comes from whatever, Tajikistan, and they compete in judo. And nobody's watching and nobody cares. And there's no Nike contracts, but something you've honed your skills at and worked hard at and trained at for 10 years in some cases, or 5 or 10 years, and then testing your skills against somebody in camaraderie. There's nothing wrong with that. I know there's a whole segment of true, oh, every sport is just horrible. Then at least clarify your position. You know what they've turned basketball into. $200 million contract extensions for a bunch of bums that don't play defense. But there's some last bastions of pure sport, and it's not all a bad thing. It is not all a bad thing. Okay, we are in these bodies, and it's always been a big part. Testing the body, track and field, running. It's not a bad thing. Okay, it's part of the human experience. To poo-poo every aspect of sport, like a lot of the truth community does, is wrong, in my opinion. Certainly, Tom Brady in the NFL, that is so toxic, of course, but there's still elements in the Olympics that are still pure sport, and they can't wipe it out overnight. But in general, why does it destroy everything? Um, two areas we'll talk more later. It creates a sense of hopelessness that, like, every little bit of whatever you looked forward to or bit of joy, I liked it. I'll just take me for example. Of course, I'll never watch the NFL again. Based on many things, not just the Kaepernick absurdity and taking the knee and all, or turning the back during the national anthem. You know what I think of national anthems and country designations and these artificial divisions they've created using countries where a one world system exists. And there's a lot of reasons I won't watch the NFL, and a lot of reasons I'll never watch NBA basketball again. But I mean, at some point there's I'll still watch a little bit of college football and I do want to look forward to certain things. I wanted to look forward to the Olympics. I knew it would be toxic with the mask presentation, whatever. But and it did. I know what to expect from the Notnilc reality system, so I can get through it. But how does the guy down the cul-de-sac deal with it? He just his subconsciously sees that everything that he kind of looks forward to is being destroyed. Look at what they've done to comic books, and it's being done across the board. It has to do with creating a sense of hopelessness, almost where people just it just wants people to kind of just throw up their arms and just tune themselves down to the frequency of the reality once, and then they'll forever be part of the dark side. I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about this more in the future, but another part of it does have to do with it stomps out imagination. I'm pretty convinced that this is actually appropriate to talk about now. We always talk about what do we have in common? Why do we see certain things that others don't? And a big aspect of that is our imaginative abilities. This could be, if I had to pick one thing that we in this community have in common, more than in terms of being able to see through the fraud, it's our imaginative abilities. For example, in the past, we looked for pedestrian reasons. Maybe most of us here never put our head into a smartphone, and that's why we aren't mind controlled, or we're Rh negative blood, or all that is no. No, I told you, I don't know, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I got a smart TV. It didn't change me one bit. I don't care what frame rate's coming through, what interlaced messages, subliminals, it didn't change me, I don't believe, in one bit. I can see through the fraud now after what we've been through with CV much more than I could 2 years ago. So it's not those things. To me, what we have in common in this community is a hyper heightened level of imagination. If I had to pick one thing, I guarantee everybody listening to this, um, had imaginative things as a kid that went off and, I played with action figures, just creating scenarios. And, this is all imagination, not just getting on PlayStation when you're from birth and putting the iPad. This is to crush imagination. I played with these Star Wars figures, creating scenarios, and I didn't, didn't have just had these plastic figures, didn't have all these expensive props, or I didn't, I wasn't lucky enough as a kid to get the $80 Death Star, so I had to create this in my mind. And people talk about similar things as a kid in this community, and I guarantee, and I'm not, this isn't coming out very well, but I guarantee y'all had a certain level of imagination, and that is also what one of the things the destruction of all things accomplishes is not just tuning everybody down on the frequency, but it destroys all imagination. And I know it's not coming out real well, but it's kind of hard to get it out, and we'll talk about it in the future. So in general, and more needs to be said, that this is what it gets out of 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 the destruction of all things considered art and the human expression, of which sports is part of that. So with the Olympics, they can't get it done as quick as they can with baseball or basketball and all the sports. They introducing replay. I mean, this introduction of replay is to take out the human aspect. See, the technology inserted always takes out the human aspect of it. And they understand nobody wants the replay to be as invasive as it is. They understand what their focus groups would say, but it's not about what the fans want. It's about believing it's about getting the fans to believe that all the coordinators of these sports, they just want to put on the best, fairest show possible, and the replay and the technology is necessary. It's not. It's all part of the destruction of it. So there's so many small um, bastions of real sport still going on in the Olympics, like the two people doing, judo you've never heard of that have no Nike contracts. They can't destroy it all at once, but they will work to destroy it, and their patience, as usual, is inhuman. Maybe it'll take the rest of our lifetime to completely destroy the Olympics, but one way they've loved it for this year. One way was the toxic environment that just any real person, non-NPC, real soul, spirited person, even if you liking the sport, watching the sport, the masks, the presentation of the mask, what was one of the main purposes of this Olympics was the in-your-face, endless presentation of the mask. With the Japanese handlers were so, I mentioned before, I don't blame the athletes. They were so tough on the athletes. Like basically, the moment they got out of the pool, some Japanese handler would come over and put this mask on, and they're like wearing the mask for their interview, like sucking air in through the mask. Dangerous. The Japanese handlers, completely on the frequency, basically like mindless zombies or mindless zombies without the basically pushing this agenda hardcore. It was pushed, and the presentation of the mask was. We expected it. This is, especially Asia, but even the way they constructed the official mask for the athletes, it was, in my opinion, it could have been designed to be like the last Mad Max movie. I mean, it was, if you didn't see it, first of all, the last Mad Max movie with the guy in his mask, that whatever, it was a horrible movie. I turned it off after 30 minutes. I couldn't believe what they did to Mad Max. Of course, it got all these great Rotten Tomato scores or whatever, but the guy was in this silver. It was an interesting bad guy, like the first 30 seconds, and then it just got horribly boring. But that's what the mask looked like. They had the official mask they gave the athletes, the Olympic Committee, at least the United States, was this huge, gigantic, thick thing with ridges. It literally looked like to me, it was the bad guy from Mad Max. Maybe that's a stretch to you, but so that's a way it was, you're kind of destroying it in the minds of even people that don't, of course, that don't realize the things that we realize of how it operates, how it does business. Are they just love all the masks, the people that watching normally on. Okay, some people are in love with the mask, but you know what I mean. It didn't sit well with a lot of people, whether they were consciously aware of it or not. Just to not even see the smiles on the face of the athletes that just won their swimming event. You couldn't even see them smile. It was sick. But the other part was the watering down of it. So like the Notnilc, when it doesn't know exactly what to do, or when it needs to destroy the Olympics or any bastions of pure sport that it still exists, it needs to do this over many, many years, and it just can't do it overnight because people might notice if it does it overnight. If it just left the sports, for example, that had the pro athletes like basketball, and it removed all the smaller events where these athletes are not sponsored by Nike, people might notice. So it seems like it goes the opposite way. It seems like they added 20 sports to it. So what the Notnilc does in this regard is everything becomes watered down and not special. So in the past Olympics, there was always a lot of tertiary events that people didn't pay much attention to, like the indoor cycling, where teams of four cycling chase. Like there's this indoor cycling track that's small and it's banked, and one team starts on one side, and a team of four, and they start out and they kind of chase each other. I don't know. One team tries to get up and pass the other, and nobody paid much attention to it. It's probably been in the Olympics a long time. There are sports like that, but if you can't remove it, then the Notnilc, it's kind of like they know to go, it knows, and its creepiness knows to go the other way. And it spit out its ticker tape to its minions. The minions waited by the window to go up at the Chernobyl Center. And it says, well, I'm waiting. I'm waiting by the window here. I'm getting instructions from the Whopper AI Notnilc. On what? Is it important this morning? Yes, it's very important. How to destroy the Olympics. Oh, how to destroy the Olympics. Let me, do you mind if I wait with you? No, here it comes. Minions, the minions they don't make the decisions on their own. Who knows what makes the decisions? Stand behind the screen. The minions, here comes the ticker tape. Add, we will destroy it by adding more events, a ridiculous amount of events. Even the minions might understand. What does that do? Oh, it creates a situation so nobody gives a shit about anything. So in the past, the big events, I was going to say, the big events was the women's and men's gymnastics. The swimming was always big, and they still present these as big events during the prime time. But they introduce all of these other events that really nobody gives a crap about. And to me, this is all, they have to be patient in their destruction of the Olympics. They cannot accomplish this in 4 years. Okay, they cannot accomplish this quickly. So you add, for those that don't know, all sorts of skateboarding events. I mean, I'm sorry, this is what the X Games are for. Almost nobody cared other than some 20-year-old kids that decided to tune in the Olympics. And they did 20-year-old kids watch the Olympics? No. I mean, no. Maybe they watched some skateboarding, but all sorts of events where they're skateboarding in the cement park and jumping up, and then skateboarding events where they jump on a railing and spin around and come off the railing, and all these tricks that you'd see on the X Games. They brought golf back a few years ago. Guys, I didn't watch these sports, so I'm sorry I can't just list them off to you. But there was a lot of new sports and even twists on old sports to kind of water it down and give people what they don't want. So they ultimately what the Notnilc wants is people just say I don't care about the Olympics anymore, just to walk away to destruction of all things. Mixed events. They had mixed track and field with men and women. News flash. Even people down the cul-de-sac on the frequency, nobody wants to see it. I'm sorry. No, nobody wants to see it. It didn't work, especially in the swimming, mixed swimming they added. So then you have the medal counts are now off now because of all these new events. And I mean, mixed swimming where it's all about putting a certain man in the pool to go against a certain woman at the right time. It really doesn't have anything to do with the pure sport of the athletes anymore. So they just added a bunch of nonsense, and it would be, I guess, too blatant for them to just say, what are the pure sport that still exists in the Olympics where there isn't any money involved, where it's just skill against skill and hard work against hard work. Remove all that. Sir, we can't remove all that. People would catch on. They might actually go over to some of these conspiracy channels and think they're actually making sense. We can't do that, sir. Hmm. Well, what can we do? We can put in a bunch of nonsense so people basically don't give a shit about the entire Olympics anymore. If we put in a bunch of nonsense, then that pulls down all of the sports that people actually look forward to. And then we have a little bit of a twist, sir. What people are looking forward to the most in these Olympics, and it was the number one attraction around the world, the performance of supposedly the greatest of all time and Simone Biles. We won't even let her compete. We'll pull her out. The main you you're going to pull out the main draw. Yes, you understand. You've been at the table for a while. We want to destroy it. We don't want people. But won't NBC be upset about the ratings? We'll make them whole, whatever they lose. Of course, you know that. That's how. Is that how it works? Yeah, basically. Without anybody being in on it. That's what's so incredible about it. Without the conversation taking place, it still does exactly what the reality wants. I alluded to this song earlier. I just need to mention this. I should have mentioned a long time ago. Before I started talking about this, I thought this song popped up. It was again Rilo Keeley, Kiley. Most of you haven't heard of this band, mid 2000s. The Execution of All Things. And I thought it presents itself like in a poppy kind of friendly. And I thought the Execution of All Things, there's something creepy in there. I never really paid attention to the lyrics, but of course you pull them up. The verse two, it says, actually it's verse three. Sorry. O God, come quickly, the execution of all things. Let's start the execution of all things. Let's start with the bears and the air and the mountains and the rivers and the streams. Then we'll murder what matters to you and move on to your neighbors and kids. Crush all hopes of happiness with disease because of what you did. Because of what you did. Okay, so, you know, do I think that this Rilo Keeley, um, just happened to write those lyrics on their, this is the name of the band. I don't think it's any one person. Just happened to write those lyrics on their own without being handed a 3x5 card from the creepy piano player and Under the Silver Lake? No. Um, Matt, did they use Rilo Keeley and only Rilo Keeley as a complete musical allusion to the destruction of? No, I'm sure they put out their intentions to destroy all art and human expression in a lot of different things. This is just the one that came to mind for me because I definitely remember this song and I just pulled up the lyrics. I'm sure they've put their intentions to destroy all things, the execution of all things, in a lot of different places. Okay, in its destruction or execution of all things, it is across the board, as usual, out to create a hopelessness in people or an apathy where they just don't care and oh heck, I'll just jump on the frequency. You can't fight City Hall. If you can't beat them, join them. That sort of thing. And if it can't be blatant about it, again, one of the ways its basic playbook is confusion. Create all sorts of confusion. Last summer, the summer of confusion. This summer could be considered even more so the summer of confusion. Nobody knows what going. There's no consistency from authority. There's no consistency in its presentation. It does this across the board with its confusion. Even to me, something as trivial, and this sounds so ridiculously conspiratorial, I'm sure, but even to me, when I pause my television, Comcast brings its screen up and it'll start flashing news headlines. And some of the news headlines are presented as very serious. Oh, so many cases in New York, or somebody we know just died. But then right after that, they'll present a news headline of the most trivial thing you can possibly imagine. Ex housewives of Atlanta star Jane, whatever, is divorcing her husband of 4 years. What? Like, it's all by design. Without, of course, the people that load the news headlines in the Comcast don't have any sense, of course, how they're serving the master reality. This is how it works for those on the frequency on the download, in my opinion. So it loves confusion. And there's no bigger confusion regarding the what you can show the world, the Olympic presentation, the confusion regarding what should be protocols for something presented to the world as being very serious. Every athlete, of course, believes in the complete seriousness of this thing. They don't come over to channels like this. They don't question anything. And so you in the protocols, in other words, if they were completely strict and none of the volleyball players hugged and they kept distancing and they wore their masks consistently, I would actually be better with that, even if there was more mask presentation. It's the inconsistency and confusion on purpose that just drives me crazy as my pet peeve. So the U.S. Olympic women's volleyball team, not the beach, the indoor, I guess it's 6-on-6, the U.S. Uh, beat Brazil for the gold medal game. So most of the volleyball players aren't in masks when they're playing. There are very few, but that actually play in a mask. But for most part, they don't. In the U.S., for the most part, no. So when they win up, I mean, just the confusion of it, the inconsistency of it, when all these people are supposed to be taking it seriously, it just drives me crazy. Now, I don't know if I should be presenting this as part of the master Notnilc strategy to destroy and take the soul of a human being and have the human being doom itself. Maybe that's going a little too far, but let me just put this wherever you want to put it. I just have to get it out. I'm not sure exactly how this presents into the overall theme of this presentation, but after they set the ball up and the U.S. will spike it down and slam, it's the greatest thing of all time. All six women will like come together, yeah, and they will scream, and I mean scream in each other's faces every time there's a big point. Come together, and sometimes their heads are a foot away from each other. They come together and hug, huddle up, and the person that made the point or the spike, boom, ah, and then, guys, I've noticed when, again, I'm just talking about the inconsistency here drives me crazy. I've noticed when at a diner, the light comes through, the sunbeams in, and when my mouth is dry, I've seen pieces of spittle fly out at the person I'm dining with. We've all seen this. The amount of stuff that comes out. Again, so these people, every one of them believe in the official Dr. F narrative. Every one of them believes in every single New York Times article about what this is. Okay, they've all rented the movie. Fine. If they've all rented the movie, they believe they're completely protected. Okay, I'm just talking about the inconsistency of it. They come together, scream in each other's faces, and I mean scream in each other's faces. They're swapping everything on every point. But then, you know what I'm going to say? One will check in for another one, a substitute. They'll go over to the bench and put the mask on. They're still with their team, the people they've been screaming, they're literally screaming in each other's faces. They'll put a mask on. Now, I'm sorry, okay? This is not just about the Japanese handlers coming forth, or it just doesn't. But then you look at the bench, though. There'll be two or three with the mask on. One, the mask is dropped below the chin. One, it's below the nose. Just at least be consistent with what you believe this thing to be or not to be. Is that the question? It drives me crazy. So anyway, maybe I'm just venting apart this section, but the um, the mask presentation was a big part of what this Olympics was to push on to the world. It was, and it's already coming back now in the United States. And though there's another shoe to drop, no doubt about it. I mean, do we think they're done with us? No. They're going to try to string this thing out as long as possible. They'll put us back into a crisis and do mini lockdowns, not like Sydney or Melbourne. Nothing's that bad. I don't know how those people are putting up with that situation. It is quite remarkable because they'll talk about, as I said, the Comcast news headlines flash something like the United States at its worst it's been since last summer. Excuse me, guys. The worst that it's been since last summer, 100,000 cases a day. So the United States has, according to the news ticker, 100,000 cases a day, and still no restrictions, no nothing. Most stores you go out, no mask, but there's like 5 cases, not 100,000 a day, but 5 cases in the Sydney area, and they'll lock the whole city down. Like, I don't know, just the inconsistency of that. I don't know why those people aren't banging the doors down. I don't know how any other way to put it. It is just it is amazing what they've been able to do to Australia. It's literally I don't understand. It's a reality breakdown to me. I don't understand how that's happening. Um, and as gone as I think everybody in the United States is in tune to the frequency, I don't think that could happen here. But hey, Matt, you don't know what the next shoe is going to be. Well, okay, we'll see. I guess I should say, with the human being, basically, I'm saying they're on some sort of download, tuning themselves to a frequency. They would be capable of almost anything, right? But I still think there's some things that could knock them off the frequency. I still think they have to be careful when they get people on the frequency to not overstep in a ridiculous sense that that could knock people off the frequency. But that's neither here nor there. The mask presentation was a reminder to the world and those countries that have been given a free-range chicken summer where they've been able to go, run around and do whatever they want without a mask, that, well, the Olympics remind you that, you know, this is the way the world still is, and, it's probably coming back to a city near you. So it's just the inconsistency, the whole thing drove me crazy. And again, just with the volleyball, guys, again, these people believe every bit of the news. The coach, Karch Karai, the assistant coaches, They believe, lives are at stake here. Of course, they buy every bit of it. Now they're young people. They throw caution to the wind. But Karch Karai and the coaches, you would at least think there'd be some consistency where they'd say, look, the Japanese almost didn't have this Olympics. They're going to be big on the mask. We talked about this, but we're going to respect some protocols here. When you spike the ball down, we're not going to come and hug, and even though we've all rented the movie, we're going to say, yeah, good, good job, and we're not going to we're going to do some things and respect some protocols. Okay, guys, I know it's all pointless, but I'm saying I would be much more respective of it, if that's even the right way of putting it, if it was consistent. And what I'm saying, what Gus is saying here, is the inconsistency and the confusion that brings in people, even if they're not consciously aware, is all part of its master game. It loves the fact that this sport will seem to be taking the protocols and the masks seriously, where the next sport that comes in the Olympics, they don't at all. And it's just people hugging and spitting on one another. And this one is doing things to respect the protocols. And then the next, they love that all over the place confusion. It's just something that is the basic playbook for blocking and tackling. Okay, let's talk about the opening and closing ceremonies. And to me, it's as simple as going along with the same theme as the destruction of music, art, movies, TV, the destruction of what was once looked forward to by people. Some people, sure, hundreds of thousands of people that just weren't interested in the sporting competition at all, but would look forward to, this dumb word, the pageantry, if that's the right word. It's maybe not as dumb as if you will, but the pageantry of the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies, and that was destroyed on purpose. Excuse me. Um, I couldn't think the closing ceremony could be worse than the opening. First off, for the opening, guys, it's basically, if you miss, there's just nothing going on. We've seen, they're not all like a North Korean parade. You've seen these North Korean spectacles where they've got like 100,000, not quite, but like 100,000 people in the square of Pyongyang, all waving the flags, all they work for years, that perfect coordination, and Kim Jong Un sitting up there with his bowl of popcorn, and it's not quite that what they do in North Korea, because that's all they got. That talk about not having something to look forward to. That's all they got. I mean, Kim Jong Un has Dennis Rodman visits to look forward to. The rest of Pyongyang, they ain't got reruns of Taxi and reruns of the Cosby Show in Pyongyang. So they got these parade spectacles. And who wants to see more missiles driven through the street? That's just paper mache anyway. Um, so people look forward to the opening ceremonies, like China is doing the Winter Olympics, which is coming up in February, just coming up in February, the Winter Olympics. The China initially, when they did the Summer Olympics, I don't know what it was, 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, the bird's nest. They had a lot of people, a lot of coordination. Even the creepy London Olympics, the ode to the NHS and stuff, as creepy as that was, and an allusion to what's going on now, big time Voldemort illusion. It was still a lot of production value put into it. There was no production value put into the opening and closing ceremonies. And all I can say about the opening, they were so bad, I really don't remember what happened. Yeah, I think they showed somebody on an exercise bike, training alone, always exercising on a machine, always by themselves in the beginning, like, oh, it's been tough on the athletes, the whole CV sob story. But forget the opening ceremonies. The closing was bizarre in that, I'm not even joking. A big, massive middle school I'm not joking, a big ass middle school somewhere in the United States could put on a better production than what the Japanese did. Let me say it one more time. I'm not joking, it was that absurd. Used to seeing these huge, even in Sochi, um, the closing of the Winter Olympics in Sochi, there wasn't a whole lot going on, but they had these huge, it was a huge ice skating rink with these huge, I don't know what we call it, automaton or robotic. One was a gigantic bear, one was a gigantic rabbit that skated around, and it was impressive. These giant figurines they create or whatever that was in Sochi. It wasn't a whole lot going on, but there was a lot to that. And the closing ceremonies, how do I describe it? Um, okay, all the athletes come out, and then they're going to perform. Then there's going to be this big spectacle, which never came. They have this big gray square platform in the middle with it's like there's steps up to this gray platform. There's not one color on it. There's not one. It's just this ugly gray platform. All the people that were working the quote show, whatever they were, just people around the athletes or around the edge of this platform, just like zombified, waving their flags or people. I guess they were in some sort of traditional Chinese garb. I don't know. It looked like surgeons' uniforms. Like, wait. I mean, they weren't doing it. Nobody was doing anything. And then a singer came out and they performed some sort of, I mean, but just literally like the eighth graders down here could probably do that in about a week. There was no production value. There was no people just kind of dancing on their own that couldn't even dance. And then over here they have jugglers. Oh, okay, they have some form of entertainment, and like jugglers juggling three balls. Like okay, they were pretty good. The guy could go. I can go behind my back juggling. I can juggle three balls and go behind my back and catch it one out of two times. Now I haven't practiced juggling for 15 or 25 years. There was no America's Got Talent. Even the ones that get booed off the stage are better than what Japan put up. It was just then they had people like kicking a soccer ball around, and then you had Tara Lipinski and is it Johnny Weir? They usually do the figure skating commentary in the Winter Olympics. How do you say this without the video getting blocked worldwide? If you saw Johnny Weir, you know what I'm about to say. Tara Lipinski and Johnny Weir constantly apologizing for it because they have to just go from their script. It wouldn't be possible for Tara Lipinski to ever say, Mike Tirico wasn't there, but don't you think it's strange how little effort the Japanese put into their opening and closing ceremonies? Like, can't anybody be real and just talk about it normally? Well, Matt, then they would never be invited back into fine. But it's not Japan making these decisions, guys. It's the Notnilc reality and the screen with its basic drill of basically destroying everything. And people kicking soccer balls around, and Tara Lipinski's like, oh, the athletes weren't allowed to roam around outside. They had to, because of the protocols, and they were kept strictly inside their little section of the Olympic Village or whatever that was. And they got their sushi delivered door to door with the room service. See, they brought Japan and the incredible feel of the parks and everything to the athletes. Is that your excuse for why you don't have to do anything regarding production value? Just some guy kicking a soccer ball around to another guy. This is the closing ceremonies of the Olympics. Okay, you get the point. Nothing was going on. Then a singer comes out. Okay. Then they have. Okay, let me go back. Remember, mention those two commentators. One was, RuPaul has a show on television called Drag Race, right? You've seen it. Well, Johnny, imagine the most flamboyant winner that's ever appeared on RuPaul's Drag Race, a show on television. Imagine the most flamboyant there's ever been, far out eclipsing RuPaul. Then Johnny was ahead of that in terms of his, can I say that? Whatever New York State pronoun again, I made a mistake. Whatever New York State pronoun that blank chooses was queened up. Uh, okay, it was quite a spectacle. No, it's the same old presentation over and over again in your face. No, he doesn't need to do that. Okay, if anything about anything were real, they would say, Johnny, we know, you got to just, I'm sorry, this is most announcers over the course of history going back through, we've actually usually mostly wearing suits and ties. It's a little bit of a formal presentation, the way a news anchor typically wears a suit and a tie. There's a little bit of a formal, not that you have to wear, but we don't need that. All right, of course, it's all done on purpose. And then, of course, the opera singer comes, the Japanese opera singer, and is anybody surprised? I'll give you Japanese opera singer on that bland ass gray stage by itself, singing a very long opera when they're taking down the Olympic flag. I'll give you three guesses in terms of what the presentation was, but you're only going to need one. I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you. As far as I know, there's two genders. I don't. Maybe there are more now, but as from my perspective, oh, there's actually, technically there's like thousands. But I mean, for the most people, even the guy down the cul-de-sac would say, yeah, there's a man and a woman. I don't know. It was right down the middle, exactly right down the middle in terms of you'd say, is it a man or it was right down the middle. This Japanese opera singer, um, and it was, of course, that's of course by design. It's just incredible how it does this. And what do people think as they watch? Is there anybody? I would love to be, a little, what is it? Was it Rick Moranis Shrunk the Kids or whatever those crappy movies were? Shrink me down and like just lurk underneath the couch and just listen to different people. And is there the guys? He's feeding him popcorn. You're like, honey, you're making me watch these closing ceremonies. Is the guy in some rural part of Tennessee bitching about it? He's like, another presentation where we don't know if it's an M or an F, or are people across the country bitching about it? Or are they on the frequency and they just did they? I don't know what's going on in living rooms around the country. At least I don't know what people are doing. The Nike commercial, the Nike the Nike new presentation is the most offensive commercial I've ever seen in my entire life. And guys, I don't like fighting these pointless little battles. Me saying I will never spend another penny on a Nike product for the rest of my life. I won't. I will never spend another penny on Nike products. I know that doesn't mean anything. Corporations that sit at the creepy table don't even, they act first and foremost to push agendas first. Profits come, I was going to say second, but I don't even think they come fifth because they can get whatever money they need from the overall system if they've pulled up a seat to the creepy table. If Nike makes a decision to put out a certain commercial that hurts their one of their whole product lines, well, the Notnilc system through the Fed will make them whole. I fully believe this, and you'll never see a major company go down again, ever, ever. What you exist now, Nike, Procter and Gamble, whatever exists now is here for our lifetimes. They will not fail. If one might be put up sacrificially to make it look real, like Radio Shack, or maybe that one was real, but Kmart, Sears wasn't real. Those they should be needed more than ever. Kmart, Sears. They have to make it look good. They have to make one goes out every so often. But I will never spend another penny on Nike, and I know that doesn't mean anything. It's just a personal choice. This they presented it on Saturday, I believe, was the first time they presented the most offensive commercial of all time. By itself, it wouldn't be, but it's a cumulative effect. We've seen these types of commercials, anti-men, anti what I am. We've seen it. It was almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. But on its own, you could almost argue this commercial, Nike knew it's something. You'll see it. I'll try to mimic it just for 30 seconds, but this well, it's going to take a little bit longer. Um, the this I can't I can't say color, I can't say racial or gender, but you know what the presentation is going to be. You think it's going to be me coming forth with this statement? So this obnoxious little girl, of course, very short haircut. What else? This obnoxious, horribly obnoxious little girl says, I don't remember the movie. It made me sick the first time. The commercial the first time I saw it made me sick. I'll try to remember the best I can. Today in school, I have a presentation. It's on dynasties. I don't know any other way to make fun of it just with that. She didn't really sound like that, but it's on dynasties. And of course, it's not going to be on the dynasties you think in terms of making a school presentation. And then they show like dynasties of the past. They show old busts, like a bust of, like when you picture the bust of, that's a marble head on the bust of Marcus Aurelius, or the bust of Alexander the Great, or the bust of, I'm mentioning that because that's in the commercial, bust of Aristotle. What is the busts, right? What It's a marble head carved, and right below the neck it cuts off. But what color is it? So they show these. I'm not going to present it. Of course, it's all about the white. I'm not going to bitch forever about the white man getting being the ultimate villain of all time. But it's just like one more white man villain presentation. I mean, really? I mean, come on. So, guys, if saying things like I think this will load, but I assure you, if something trivial causes a problem with it'll be free voice 100%. I will not go back. But I think this will be fine. I know kind of how far to push it. Well, I think. So she's not going to make a presentation on like the Roman Empire dynasties, and then they show the bus and not those white men. My presentation is going to be about the women's Olympic basketball team. Okay, well that's dime for 5 gold medals in a row. Okay, we'll see what she has to say. I'm trying to be open-minded. Of course, I know where it's going. And then she's saying, um, women of blank. I mean, here we go with the race. I mean, and then blank women. Women that San Francisco lifestyles, that which I have a hobo code. I'm not sure if we should use it or like it. It's what was it? The hobo code for San Francisco lifestyles is um what was David Hasselhoff and CJ was on Baywatch. Baywatch is a show with David Hasselhoff. Bay, is like the kind of where I'm going. Baywatch. So you can't just say the first word because that's too close. You got to do the whole thing. So Baywatch. I was thinking eBay per the emphasis of the second word. That doesn't work. So she's saying the dynasty I'm talking about in my presentation is the U.S. women's basketball team. Women of blank. Um, Baywatch women. Why? How is that relevant to so you immediately have to bring in what they like to do below the belt line. We're so sick and tired of that presentation over and over and over again. They right off the bat she says those two things, and then she's saying again, not like the old dynasties. It shows a picture of Alexander the Great, who's painted as a big blonde-haired white guy, and then they put an X through it, right over the big blonde-haired painting of Alexander like me, a white guy. They put a big X through it, like the third strike in it's not The Price is Right, the Family Feud. They put a big X over his head. Like, okay, I know, I understand the white man's been demonized, but it's so over the top, and I do wonder, what do these people? Again, if I could just be a little Stuart Little in their living rooms, okay, the Baywatch community, and sitting and they're watching the Olympics, are they like going, yeah, somebody mentioned us again. Oh, this is so great. You would think like if they're normal at all, they're going, what? They're cringing. If I was on the Baywatch beach and I just would like, okay, there's no more discrimination. It's the opposite. If I submit my job application, I'll have people like lining up at the door to come, competing to. It'll be like competing for Mitch McDeere in the middle of the firm. If there's no, it's the opposite of discrimination. Why do you think I have to put my orientation on some? So there's actually Goldman Sachs. I covered this. Goldman Sachs will ask you your sexual orientation on the job application. Now, if I put that I'm the way I am and I'm straight and I put all that stuff, do you think that helps me or hurts me? Oh, let's think about this. So it's actually there's no discrimination. It's the opposite. But if you're on the Baywatch Beach and you're just sitting on the couch with some friends or whatever, are you like rolling your eyes like this is getting like cringeworthy how like much they're pushing this? And I honestly, I think this has happened with a lot of black people. I really do. Like there's Pam has neighbors that are black, several down this, and they are like overly nice to me. I mean, they're always nice to me. Of course, I've known them for years, but it's like they're overly nice to me because they see and they recognize how over the top the presentation has been, and it's almost like they're trying to make up for it. And then white people, of course, they'll believe the presentation and how horrible the white man has been horrible to the, and then they'll be overly nice to the black because, but for the wrong reasons. At least the black people are going like this presentation is over the top, and they're some of them are recognizing it. Trust me on this, and they're like they're not falling for it. Many are, many are. You're out marching in certain groups, you're falling for it, but many aren't, or at least they see that as just unnaturally over the top. The way so if I'd love to be Stuart Little, seeing how does those on the Baywatch Beach, how do they react when they see it over and over and over again? And honestly, if they're cheering for it at this point, going, yeah, we're really, there's something wrong with them. Well, all people, there's something wrong with everybody on the download. But you understand what I'm saying. So this commercial was just, it was, you'd think, how could they go farther than they have with Nike pushing Kaepernick and stuff like, I mean, is it going to matter that Matt's, I will not do it. And you know what, Matt, you're deluding yourself. You think New Balance is any different? You're going to buy sneakers again, right? Yeah, I got that. I understand. Yeah, I understand if I choose a Reebok or one of these other major brands that maybe they're not sitting next to Nike and Disney, but they got a chair back in the same room. I got it. Who are you talking to here? I got it. But I got to buy. What am I going to do? Wrap my feet in loincloths? And I mean, I got to buy sneakers, but it's just a matter of principle. And that's what this life is all about. It's about principles and sticking with them. So if you set that principle, and I'm setting no more Nike, then that doesn't hurt Nike. It's just a personal thing, and it is up to me to stick with it and not violate my own principles. So, guys, thanks for listening. Got a little long. Is there anything else about the Olympics? Um, just I don't know. It's just the closing ceremonies, how nothing was put forth. It's all part of the general scheme of destruction, destroying what was once looked forward to, a demoralization, a creating a sense of apathy, hopelessness. It's just a simple playbook. It's blocking and tackling, and people around us just think the destruction of everything is just the best. They think it's the best a modern society can do in all aspects. They'll admit, the people down the cul-de-sac will admit that there's been no good movies. That's a little strange, but that's and there've been no good music, and there's been none of this is good, and this is no longer good, and this is destroyed, and the Olympics stink now, and I don't like sports the way I used to because everything is replay and everything's technology, and they don't the human element's gone. The human element's gone by introducing technology to sports. They'll see all that, the people down your cul-de-sac, but they'll find ways to explain it away, and they've been given ways to explain it away. Like, for the example of, it's always like, if my friend Tony, it's just the liberal politicians have taken over everything, and they push their liberal politics, and it's actually a form of Marxism. That's an excuse that gives them, when they see something on TV that doesn't make any sense, that's the script that they'll pour forth, that see, this explains why we're seeing this. This is over the top, but I guess the Marxists have more control than we thought. They will never, it gives them an excuse, so they never have to go over to where the real crazies are having their conversations, over like on this side of the conversation, where people are talking about an entire reality system that's designed to destroy a human being or to remove it from itself, a horcruxing of the spirit. I mean, that's what it's all about. Of course, that's what it's all about. It's so clear to us at this point. But these people and Tonys of the world, my friend Tony will never come over here. And even if they don't have any inclination to come over here. But even if they did, they've been given they've been giving enough excuses to explain it away, where they just don't ever have to entertain. Which, look, it's the real reason for what's happening. And I talked pretty definitively about that, but you all see it, and it's nothing new to us. The whole reality system works in concert, with very few people being in on it, to remove a human being from understanding any aspect of itself. It's that simple. It's a half a page. It's one sentence. Thanks, guys.